Hey there, hope you're doing okay. So this webinar today is going to be essential for you if you want to get the most out of your exercise and movement, especially with regards to strength training. And I'm sure you do. With a limited amount of time we all have available, I want to make sure that every session you have in the gym, you get the most out of it. So we're going to talk about today how I write training, what that means for you, and how you can move towards a place of greater autonomy or understanding of what you need to do in the gym to get a great strength session in. So without further ado, okay, so what the fuck is this? That's the obvious question, right? And if you don't know or have never seen this kind of language before, it's like you don't know where to start. But the point is, with coaching, one of the big friction points in coaching is me communicating something and you understanding it, or the client understanding it in such a way that makes sense and correlates to their understanding of the world, etc., etc. So one thing we want to do, especially in strength training and training overall, is create this shared language that is simple, concise, and that if you're in the gym and you're looking at the instructions, you can read it immediately and go, right, I know what that is, I know what that is, I know what that is. So that's why we use this language, okay? It simply is creating a short form version of intention. And if you think of it that way, right, it's about creating clarity on the intention of an exercise in a way that you can understand really quickly. Why this matters? Well, strength training isn't just strength training, right? So if you think of just any exercise, okay, if I said to you just do 4 by 10 reps with no tempo, no effort prescription, that could look very different. Okay, that could look very easy or it could look very hard. And so it's really important that we have an understanding of what the intention is behind it. And that's what we'll get from a tempo prescription and from understanding the RPE, which is the rate of perceived exertion. Okay, it helps you get the most out of it. And that's what I want to do. And so that's why it's important, really important, that you take ownership of it, because it isn't about just turning up to the gym, ticking the boxes, doing your reps and sets, and then going home. All right. I've been around fitness a long time. I've been coaching fitness a long time. And if I can tell you one thing, it's this: it's intention matters when you're in the gym. If you just show up and do the work and think, okay, I've done the weights, etc., but there's no like effort, there's no intensity, you're not going to get results. Okay, improving your muscle, improving your aerobic system, all these things take effort and energy. We can't just show up and tick a box on it. So that's why I really want you to take ownership of this and just watch this video, digest it, and then when you're in the gym, let's crack on with it. So we're going to start by the first part of this wording here. Okay, so this could be different. Obviously, this is an example for us to walk through, and we're going to speak through each part of this kind of like formula so you understand it. What you might also get here is rest as well. So after the RPE, you might get rest, so on and so forth, but that's pretty self-explanatory, okay? So the way I write exercises is like so, okay? So firstly, we have the sets. So the sets are the amount of times you're going to perform the exercise. Next, you have repetitions. So repetitions are the amount of times you're going to perform that movement within the set. Okay, so for example, here we've got 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions. Okay, now why do I give you rep ranges, and why do I really try and get this early on? Well, there's 2 reasons. First of all, it's helping you understand your body more, and it's giving you the autonomy and ability and window to progress movements week on week on week. Okay, so 3 to 4 is the amount of working sets we want to do. This will assume that generally you've warmed up, and you know your warm-up set is not a working set. A working set is that which is conducted at the tempo in here and at the intensity prescribed as well. So if it's not that, then it's a warm-up set. Okay. So 3 to 4. Why do I give you a range on the sets? Well, there's two reasons. Firstly, if you're short on time, it gives you the option to do one less. Secondly, if you do 3 good working sets, you're like, I'm done. There's no way I'm getting another fourth one in. Then it gives you that ability to understand that, okay, I'm done for the day on this. Okay. Some days you're going to feel good, other days you're not going to feel good, which we'll talk about in a bit. But this gives you that freedom. You're limited on time and you feel like you've done, then it gives you that kind of go, okay, I'll just do 3 sets today. Why do I give you a rep range? So this is about weekly progression. Okay. So each week, what I want you to do, say if you're doing a 4-week block, if you've got a 4-week block of training, and this is what you're seeing every week, 3 to 4 by 8 to 10. What I would hope and expect for each week is in that first week, you shoot for maybe the higher end, 10 reps, and you achieve the tempo and you achieve the intensity. And then next week you think, okay, well, let's push it a bit. And so say if week 1 you did 10 reps at 60 kg, then week 2 I would expect you to maybe do 9 to 10 reps at 62.5 or 65 kg. But the point is, you still want to keep it within the rep range, and you still want to keep it at the tempo, and you still want to keep it at the intensity. Okay. So week on week, what we would actually look at is to progress the movement, you would want to increase the load incrementally. Okay, so you're still, by say the 4th week, you're still in the 8 to 10 rep range, but maybe you're lifting 10 kg than you did on week 1 doing 10 reps. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, but it's giving you the opportunity to load and increase the load and therefore intensity week on week. Okay. What I don't want you to do for this, which is a common thing, is to always shoot for the upper end, okay? It's not about that, because generally if you're always shooting for the upper end, then what's not happening is you're not listening to the rate of perceived exertion, and you're just going till you hit rep 10, which probably means you've got a lot more reps in the tank. So hope that makes sense. Tempo. Tempo is really, really important. And the reason we write it in this way will be explained in a minute. But the reason tempo is important is if you imagine, say if you do 10 repetitions of an exercise and you go 1 second down, 1 second up, it's going to take you like 20 seconds to do it. But now if you did 10 reps of that exercise at this tempo, which would be absolutely horrendous for 10 reps, to be honest. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 seconds per rep. 8, 2, 6, 3, 4, 5. So that's like, that's over a minute, nearly a minute and a half for the set. So that's why it's important. And if you're trying to grow muscle, one of the things to consider here is that the more time under tension that your muscles are under, the more time they're under that stress of the load, then the better chance there is of creating those kind of micro tears in the muscles, which is what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to tear the muscles so they grow and repair and grow bigger and stronger, etc., etc. So the more time under tension, the better. That's why we put it, okay? And what this also does with tempo training, especially if we're adding a pause, it's helping you to strengthen your tendons and ligaments as well as the muscles. Okay, so for those who don't know, if you made up your anatomy and physiology, you've got your muscles. You think of like your quads on your legs, they're your big muscles, okay? But your tendons and ligaments are those bits of the muscles which connect to the joints and further up and down the chain of whatever muscle it is. If we're always doing this fast reactive training, the tendons and ligaments don't get trained, and you can have an increased chance of injury. And that's why when you're first out initially in training, you're going to do a lot more slower tempo pause work, because we're strengthening the tendons and ligaments as well as the muscles. Okay. So how to read tempo is pretty simple once you get used to it. The first number is always the part of the movement where you're lowering to the ground. Always the lowering to the ground. So if this 3, 2, 1, 2 was a squat, it would be from the standing position. I would take 3 seconds to lower to the ground. But conversely, if it was a pull up, my chin would be over the bar and it'd be 3 seconds lowering to the ground. If you get lost and you're not sure, just think about the exercise you're going to perform and go, right, what part of this is a bit where I'm lowering or moving towards the ground? And that will always be the bit that we go slower on. The reason for that is quite simple. If you imagine your own strength, okay, you can control a lot heavier weight than you can push up. Okay, so imagine you've got a big barbell on your back. Imagine it's, I don't know, like whatever's beyond what you can squat, but you could lower a heavier weight down than you can push out. So that's why we want to maximize what we call the lengthening or the eccentric phase of the movement, because that's where that time under tension is. That's where those micro tears happen to the muscles, and that's where we get the chance to actually grow. Whereas what we think of in strength training, say if you look at a squat, we think of the adaptions coming from the push, whereas actually oftentimes more adaptions come from the lengthening, the lowering. Okay, so why tempo? I hope that makes sense. How to read it, here we go. So 3, first number is always the lowering phase. Second number is always the bottom, so that will be the pause. Third number is the out or push phase, and the last one is the pause at the top, okay? The only thing to be aware of is what you may see sometimes is where you've got a 1 here, you may see an X. What X means is with intention, aggressive, okay? So if this was a squat, for example, we'll take 3 seconds to go down, 2-second pause at the bottom, then 1 second up and 2-second pause at the top. Okay, so each rep would be like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, like horrible, right? If this was written as 3, 2, X2, the only difference would be 3 seconds down, 2-second pause, and then with as much gusto as you've got, drive out the bottom of that squat. Okay, so if you see an X, that's what it means. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. That is tempo. Okay. Again, if you're struggling with this, I understand it's a new thing to get your head around, but if you want to get the most out of these sessions, tempo is the thing that's going to get you way more adaptions. RPE. So RPE stands for rate of perceived exertion. Quite simply, it's how hard does this feel, or should it feel? And so it's really important that we have a shared language on how to understand that. So RPE allows us to do that, okay? And if you think RPE, as we use it within strength training, generally has a range between 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, like the most intense, level, okay? 1 would be, right, I could just carry on doing this all day. 10 would be, I can't do another rep. So if we're looking at something like this, which is an RPE 8, you're going to get, that's like an 8 out of 10. All right, so that's going to be fairly heavy. But as you get to the end of that set, say if you manage to do 8 reps and you think, okay, this is feeling spicy. If you think you could probably get another 2 reps out that look good, that's probably about right. That's an RPE 8. Okay, does that make sense? If you got to that 8th rep and you felt like you could do another 4, 5, 6 reps, well, that tells you need to load it a bit more. Okay, so RPE 8 should feel like quite heavy, got a couple more reps, but that's it. Okay. Equally, if you got to rep 8 and you felt like you couldn't do another rep, you've gone too far the other way, and it's like that would be like an RPE 10. But don't get caught up on this, all right? But it's really important that you understand tempo and intensity, because both those things create a clear intention about the movement you're going to do. And without that, you're just doing a movement, all right? Movement plus intention equals the dose response you're going to get from anything, okay? And the beautiful thing about RPE, which we'll talk about in a second, is it also allows you to have autonomy and control day to day around what you lift, which we'll talk about in a second. Main thing here to finish on is to say, if you do this right and understand RPE, you won't be able to ego lift, because what you're doing is moving from this external kind of concept of what you should be doing and going internally and thinking, right, how does this feel right now in this moment in my body? Is this an RPE 8 today? If it is, you've nailed it. If not, you need to reconsider. And so this is the thing I want to finish on. And this is something I always have a lot of conversations with people about, especially if you're really busy and you have a lot going on. And some days you feel like absolute dog shit when you enter the gym. Other days you feel great. This is especially so if you've got kids or you do shifts. So here's something I want to leave you with today is when you enter the gym, I want you to have 5 to 10 seconds as you walk in, maybe as you start doing any kind of warming up and aerobic work, and to just give yourself a score about where you are that day in terms of your energy, your fatigue, your sleep, how you're feeling, aches and pains. Okay, score it. Okay, score it. Maybe a ones, feeling absolute like death. You just want to crawl into bed, in which case you probably shouldn't be in the gym. And 10 is like you're primed and you're good to go. You're like, you want to smash it. You want to rip the barbell in half, right? And just have that consideration when you're starting to warm up. So that will then set you up with the training session ahead and allow you to make the most of it whilst being aware of what you're capable of on that day. There's been studies over the years that say our strength varies day to day by up to around 30%. So if you're wondering why, well, week 1 I could do this, but then week 3 I feels like you've got weaker. No, you haven't got weaker. I'd really be surprised if you've got weaker. What's probably happened is you've not slept, you're stressed, you've got stuff going on in your life. If you're a lady, it might be time of the month, etc., etc. So strength varies week on week. The bigger picture extrapolation on this you want to consider is that progress happens not over days and weeks, but months and years. So you're going to get these undulating kind of things in terms of strength, but as long as the trends point upwards, we know we're doing the right thing. I think we spend so much of our lives looking down the end of our nose and expecting all the results to happen there. You've got to fall in love with looking at the horizon and know where that's where the magic happens in life. All right. And lastly, on this point, I think the gym presents us with a unique opportunity in life to really unplug and to really just travel inwards and to connect with our bodies and to connect with an understanding of movement, of intensity, and what that feels like. And so if at the moment you're in the gym and you're distracted by Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of shit when you're in there, I really want to champion the idea of you unplugging from that and staying present and enjoying the gift that is movement, especially strength training. Cool. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's helped you somewhat on your journey. If you've got any questions, let me know. But when you're just starting out, this is going to feel clunky. It's going to take you a while to read and get used to it. But it's like anything, the more you do it, the more efficient you get. Okay. And after a couple of months, I'm going to write these things that you're going to write. Right. That's the tempo. That's how this should feel. And then you can really move into enjoying exercise and feeling confident, which is what I want for everyone. Cool. Have a great week. Have a great day. Have a great month whenever you're seeing this. And I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.